Hey guys, for the Film Fan Club, I'm Sam Carrico, here to talk about today House of Cards Season 5. Beware of spoilers, we're gonna get into it. House of Cards is a show that really started off very strong on Netflix. It was one of the very first Netflix originals, kind of paved the way for shows like Stranger Things, A Series of Unfortunate Events, you name it. But in the recent years, pretty much starting with season 3, I really think the show has taken a huge decline in quality, and that kind of continues here. It's always remained very interesting, but they just don't know what they're doing sometimes. I feel like especially in this season, it's very much so all over the place sometimes, and then sometimes it feels like the pacing grinds to a halt, because all last season we spent talking about, Heather Dunbar and the primaries, and then like on a whim they fast forwarded to the general election, and then this season, it's in the general election. That's the very first part of it. That seems to get dragged out a very long time because I think Frank concedes to Conway, but then something happens, and then it goes to Congress, but then something happens, and then it goes to just the state of Ohio is going to decide who becomes the winner, and then Conway concedes to Frank, and it was just like, it just felt like at times they're trying to drag out this election so much, but at the same time, they're trying to just jump all over the place and do so much with so little, because, season 4, they started the Ico kind of plot, and speaking of which, the Ico plot, you really get to see Frank and then Claire in other areas, but with the Ico stuff, you get to see Frank really become a true monster. I mean, he's pretty much. I liken this show to like if Hillary Clinton married smart George W. Bush and they kind of colluded together and got crazy shit done, because much like in the early 2000s, Frank is using the war on terror to really kind of scare the United States people into submission. There's a car driving by. And it's just it's a very terrifying thing, because this show does really reflect real life in some ways, but it's also so far flung from real life. I mean the part of this show where I couldn't understand, because I thought Donald Blythe was the vice president, and Claire was the running mate to succeed him as a vice president whenever Frank begins his full term. But when Frank has to step down or something, Claire becomes the acting president, even though she wasn't I thought at the time she was just the vice presidential running mate, not the vice president herself. Which again, making Claire the vice president, a little bit far-fetched, but it's not like, in a world where Bill Clinton is president and then his wife Hillary tries to become president, 16 years later, anything could happen, I guess. This season, we get to see kind of the House of Cards starting to fall down a little bit. I do like getting to see that, all of, Frank's previous crimes coming back to haunt him. I did like the Tom Hammerschmidt storyline. I thought that was, I just like that kind of muckraker kind of, journalism, that kind of reminiscent of what Zoe Barnes was doing in the first season, and just kind of getting down to the dirty truths of it. And then the reveal at the end that it's been Frank the whole time who's kind of been leading Tom Hammerschmidt on this kind of goose chase. It's that kind of, the reveal at the end that it was Frank was a little bit kind of like, okay, that's got to take a lot of foresight to understand that. And then when, of course, he resigns his presidency, and then Claire says, "Now it's my turn." I'm like, oh God, this show is just going to keep going on forever and ever and ever and ever. Because what I liked about I read up on the original House of Cards, the British show, and it was 3 seasons, and it had a distinct beginning, middle, end. And I thought maybe, because I read about this like going into season 3 of House of Cards, the U.S. show, and I was thinking, oh, that's cool, maybe House of Cards will follow its UK predecessor, and it really hasn't. It's kind of become its very much own thing, with Claire, having a very more expanded role starting with this season. I mean, she kills Tom Yates, and I didn't really care for the Tom Yates storyline, but I think having Claire kill him in the end kind of makes it worth it, because it shows that it's not just Frank who's the calculating evil one. It is also Claire. She is also building this House of Cards actively, which we've known from the beginning of the show with their, late nights smoking cigarettes and everything. But I do like that they get that, unlike in season 3 and 4, where it did seem like the relationship was a little bit rockier, in this season, they're very much trying to work together to gain power and keep that power. I'm not sure that I'm very much interested in seeing Claire be the president and Frank be the first gentleman. Honestly, I think the show was produced before the actual 2016 election, because I think it seems like they're setting up the ending to be like a parody of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton being in the White House, but that didn't happen. So it's going to be kind of interesting, because now maybe we get a now if you want to see Hillary Clinton be president, you can live vicariously through Claire Underwood. The cast continue to do a really great job this season. I mean, that's the whole point that I keep coming back, honestly. The storylines, I really like politics. I like, of course, real politics. Then fictional politics can be pretty interesting too, even when it gets kind of far-fetched. But I love that. But what I really keep coming back for is Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright's performances. They just do great jobs. Michael Kelly, who plays, Doug Stamper, and he does a very good job in this season. You really get to see shit hit the fan, not only with Frank, and the Zoe thing, and all his previous crimes, but also with, I keep wanting to say Tom, but his name is Doug Stamper. I think his name was Tom or Tim Stamper in the UK version, but Doug is a really interesting character, and Michael Kelly just plays him to the perfect level. Also, I really liked Neve Campbell from Scream. She did a really good job in seasons 4 and 5. I liked her kind of calculating. She is to Claire what Doug is to Frank, but with a little bit less loyalty. I kind of like that her questions are tied. There's this other characters, I mean, Edgerton? No, not Joel Edgerton. Joel Kinnaman, who plays William Conway. He does a pretty good job. It's really interesting to see how they don't really play on the typical Republican tropes of, being a really, like an old white Christian dude who's, pretty much evil. They go for a different kind of approach to kind of counter Frank's, evil calculating Democrat, and it almost makes you think maybe William Conway would have been a better president, but also, it's just unfortunate, too, because like we saw last season, that neither of the candidates really care about the office. That they want the power. That's all that they're in it for. And it's also a dark reflection on real life in that sense, too, I guess. But really, this show has been fantastic so far. I didn't really care for Conway's advisor, the white-haired dude who eventually switches sides and goes to Frank. Don't care about that. Mostly this season had a lot of meandering, and then whenever it got done with the meandering, it just kind of was all over the place. The main saving grace for it, I think, was the building off of what has happened in previous seasons. I like getting to see the House of Cards fall apart, and I love the way that Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright perform it. I don't know that I'll be as excited for season 6 as I have been for previous seasons, but I will probably watch it because I like this show, and it's not a bad show or anything. I'm praising it right now. It feels like it kind of has lost its way a little bit, and it's kind of a shell of its former self. It doesn't really have the nuance that I feel like it used to have. Overall, it's still a really good show. I'm going to give this season of House of Cards 6.5 out of 10. Thanks for checking out this video, guys. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel for more content like this. We just have been talking about previous Alien movies, Prometheus, Aliens. We're all getting ready to review Alien Covenant finally. I'm going to be doing that here in a second, so subscribe so you don't miss that. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well while you're at it, @SamuelD Carrico. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.